tell us a bit about your role, Peter. It's a newly created one, obviously. Can you tell us what's your understanding of exactly what you're taking responsibility for?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm now looking at both recruiting and the important thing is now acquisition and retention. So firstly, find them. So the recruiting network that we got in place, and then once we've got them into the Brisbane environment, it's all about making them comfortable and happy and playing good footy up here.
It's obviously sort of on the back of the troubles at the end of last year, or
I think we realise that the market up here, and I think every club realises how important it is that once you've got quality players into your football club, that you want to keep them here. So you just put things in place that are going to ensure that happens, and that's something we're very much aware of. When probably we're a bit unique with a lot of the players not coming from this state. Yeah.
What's the number one thing you want to do in order to retain players?
Well, I think a few things. One, you create a great coaching and learning environment. So I think that's really important for young players. And then flowing on from that is ultimately you want to have a successful environment, because players want to play in sides that are going to be successful. So I think they're the two things. One, that they're getting better, and two, they're having success.
And how do you get around the problem of, say you recruit someone from interstate, because that's obviously something you have to do over here, the homegrown pool is smaller. It's not something you can really test them for how well they're going to go away from home. So how do you sort of pick players that are going to be comfortable being away from their home state?
Well, it's a good question. I think the first thing always is you still have to pick the most talented players who are probably psychologically going to cope with AFL football full stop, not just which club they go to, but it's a very, very demanding game. So the young players now are tested very heavily in that area as well. So we'll look closely at that. And then ultimately you have to back in the systems you put in place in your environment to make sure that A, you develop them, and B, that you look after them.
You mentioned sort of a successful environment obviously being one factor to helping keep them. You've walked into this role at a difficult time, haven't you? Because it seems to be that you're sort of rebuilding and you're having to start from the bottom up, but it's going to be a little while away before you...
Well, you never know how far away it is, to be quite honest. And there's examples of that. I mean, Port Adelaide are the classic example of 2 years ago. Everyone's saying that he was a club in turmoil and in trouble, and very, very quickly turns around. So we've got some great young talent here, and the first thing we're doing well is we're coaching it well, and we've bolstered our coaching division to do that. And who knows? I can't predict. It might be 12 months. It might be 24 months, but it will happen. But at the same time, we need to make sure that the players who are here for a long time.
I was going to say, you've sort of been taken away from that, the coaching, overseeing the coaching and working sort of alongside Justin. Is that going to take away from that coaching pool, I suppose?
Well, yes and no. I mean, this is part of the role that, given my coaching background, I'm very much aware of what Justin's trying to do as a coach here, and we're very tied in together as to what sort of players we need. And so I think in some ways my coaching background's still reasonably critical in the role. So I'd like to think that that Justin and my relationship is still as strong as ever. Yeah.
You mentioned that you were impressed with some of the younger players. Who have been the leading light that you think are really going to go on with it in terms of your guys that are only just starting out now and having to sort of really lift?
I think all who've been given an opportunity have shown a lot. Probably the ones who've played nearly all year are Aish and Taylor. Both very showed some great signs early in their career. I think Nick Robinson's pretty much played all year as well. And then we've brought Tommy Cutler and Darcy Gardner in. So I think those players have shown that they can adapt and cope with AFL football. And what you've got to realise is you need to project out 2 years, 3 years, when they've had 3 years in the system, they've played 50 to 60 games, their bodies have had 3 years of pre-seasons. On the weekend we played Sydney, And you just look at their midfield and the size and strength, and it was a clear example of a side that's far more advanced than us. But I'm always projecting out with young players to see. I know that they'll cope with it eventually because they'll have the bodies and the experience to do it.
Having said that, what do you think is best case scenario for the Lions for 2014?
Best case scenario for this year is, it's a cliche, but for us to continually expose some of our young players to the heat of AFL football, and they'll only improve from it. And we'll get some players back from injury, and some of our senior players will benefit from having that experience around them. So I can't give you a prediction on wins or losses. I'd like to think that we'll start this weekend by beating Essendon, and every week I think we can win. And that's the role of a coach and a coaching staff, is to believe they can win every week, and to convince the players that if we do certain things that'll happen. So keep positive, and the players are just got to keep learning and keep going out there and trying to do what they can.
Just one back on your draft, there's obviously a lot of eyes on your first round picks lately. Are you happy with the way James Aish has settled in, and are you sort of confident that he'll be here in the long term?
Yeah, I am. And we haven't had a lot of first round picks, really. So James is an excellent player. Whether we picked him early or later, we had to pick him early because he's a quality player. So I think he's going to be a great long-term player.
What's the latest on some of your injuries? Is Brownie expected back this week? Yes.
Both Hanley and Brown should play this week, and Beamsy should be back playing, whether he comes straight in or has to come through the NEFL. But that's terrific for us. So there's three players that we can add to our list. So it's starting to look a bit more healthier.